Hi YouTube, welcome to my channel. So today's video is actually it's going to be a topic that's very important to me. It's safety. For me, doing my travels, safety has always been one of the biggest concerns for me. From making sure we have plans ready in case things don't go wrong, such as van breaking down, flat tire, harsh winds, harsh weather, and making sure to have a plan according to those situations. But as many of us know, one of the biggest safety factors to our actual health is other humans. So this video is going to go over some of the safety measures I have taken, some that I recommend, and overall just general concepts of safety that I'd like to discuss. If you guys have any opinions on these, please leave them down in the comments below, and let's have some active discussions that can be constructive and productive to help each other. Number one, let's talk about safety in going into environments. First of all, if you're going to be traveling somewhere, and for example, for myself, I don't do extended trips, long trips, but I do shorter trips. So in these instances, I always plan, what's the weather going to be like? Is there any dangerous storms coming in? Is the vehicle maintenance kept up? Tires looking good? Any nails I should know about? Stuff like this. So these are the typical things I do to avoid road issues along the way. And I would highly recommend them as well. And make sure you have the proper clothing as well in case a breakdown happens and you're stuck in your vehicle. Make sure you have adequate food, water. Obviously, it depends on the environment you're in as well. Plan accordingly. For example, if you're just going to another state and it's going to be common highway and you expect to have signal and you can reach out to help in the case of an emergency, plan for that. But if you don't have that and you're going out in the middle of nowhere, then plan in case things don't go right. Make sure you have enough water. Make sure you have a way to communicate to the outside world, especially if you're going to go to a place with no signal. 2, self-defense. So for this, I would say it's important to have mechanisms of self-defense in place. Be aware of your surroundings. Trust your gut instincts. If you feel like an area is not safe, it probably isn't. And even if it is, if your body's telling you and your mind's telling you, let's not, it's not worth it. Just find somewhere else. That's going to be number 2. Bear mace. Obviously check your areas, where this would be appropriate and legal. I know a lot of areas, states, etc. don't allow firearms or, for example, knives, stuff like that. Bear mace is a very suggested item I would recommend that can help you in those situations. I would not recommend, for example, tasers or any of those devices. They've been proven to not be as effective and you have to be much closer in range, so highly recommend mace. Now if you are open to the idea of, and it's within your morals and your ethics, firearms, as long as you are approaching it in a safe manner, aware of what you're getting yourself into, doing the proper education, training, etc., I am pro firearms. I would rather be in a situation where I am prepared, because guess what? If someone's going to try causing harm to me, the chances are they might have a firearm. And I'd rather be prepared than not prepared, just based off my thought processes. So that one's a little controversial, but if that's not up your alley and you're wanting something a little less lethal or that fits more your morals, there's mace. There's also firearms that are specifically not firearms, act like firearms, but are less than lethal and do mace. So that's always an option. So now I'm going to talk about general safety that I practice and my van safety. First and foremost, my van on every corner has an affixed Blink outdoor camera. These cameras are Velcroed on. I've had them for about a year. Nobody's taken them. It's not a threat that I've had to deal with, and I keep them high up so they're really not too visible. This will alert my phone in case anyone is around my van and lets me know that someone's around. Now, the other question is going to be, how do I have them connected to the internet? So as long as it's an area that is going to have general signal, I just have a Bluetooth independent hotspot that I leave plugged into the van that is running, along with the hub being plugged into my batteries for the blinks and blink cameras. And with this system, I am able to get notifications to my phone in case any of the cameras are picking something up. The systems are plugged in through the inside and the cameras are wireless. So for example, The only way they would be disabled is if someone actually gets in the van, and at that point, the camera should have let me know. Another safety mechanism that you can use, van theft is a real thing, is having a secondary phone that you use as a hotspot that provides the hotspot for the Blink cameras, and you can leave the phone in a discreet area in the van. In the event it was stolen, you can now use GPS to track your van. That is my preferred method if I'm extra heightened concerns about the area I'm in. On top of that, there are GPS trackers. Those are a thing. You can, being that these are conversion builds, you can pretty much hide them anywhere. And they're not too expensive, and I really think, being that this is your home, this is a very important investment to do. It's not too expensive, and I highly recommend it. Now, I've taken this a step further. In my van, I'm very passionate about my build. This is very meaningful to me, and I don't want this to be at risk. My van also has a remote start system that was included, that was done afterwards, that also has a shutoff that I can disable and engage I'm trying to think of the word here. This remote start system has an immobilizer built in, so when I lock it, it immobilizes the vehicle, and even if it's on, it's not going to turn on. So even if it has power, it's not going to turn on, even if the ignition is messed with. So this is an additional step I did on top of it, and honestly, it was worth it to me, and I have remote start, so it was definitely a no-brainer for me, and it connects directly to my phone through the drone mobile system. Now, there are also door locks you can do and steps such as that. I haven't personally done too much of that. I know those options are out there, being that we can, as long as we're drilling in the right areas, we can always just use a lock and chains or rope, etc., to reinforce some of our entry points in the van. But I think it's also important to keep note that these entry points need to be easily accessible to get out in case of an emergency. We don't want to lock ourselves in by putting too much protection from the outside world. If an emergency happens, we need to be able to get out in an adequate amount of times. Example, a fire, And that goes on to my next subject, keeping fire extinguishers. I think it's very important. At the end of the day, we have a lot of electronics running through our van, especially if we have solar, especially if we have batteries. Things can go wrong. Make sure you have the adequate fire extinguishers that can put out these fires. For example, if it's a lithium battery, have something that can handle that. ABC fire extinguishers are pretty good, but I do not know if they cover all these areas. So make sure that you have the adequate equipment for what you're possibly going to deal with in a worst case scenario. Lastly, if you're going to be in secluded areas, that don't have a lot of signal, I think it's important to have something that can connect to satellites. For example, Starlink. That is a great way of having internet in case you want to get messages to the outside world or internet where you normally wouldn't. The latest generation iPhone now has the capability to do satellite connection. That's awesome. This was not something available for the longest of time. Prior to that having been an option, I would have recommended, for example, the Garmin emergency systems. These devices were about $500. They could connect you directly to Garmin's emergency systems, but then you would have possibly bills from there based on if you needed a medical evacuation, for example. But like I said, plan for the environment you're going to be in. If you know that in an emergency, play it out. Someone's trying to break in. What are my first, second, third steps of action? First step, try to deter them, let them know I'm here. Or if they are an immediate threat, get ready to act with that immediate threat. If it's ongoing harassment, then I need to request police officers or backup, and I have enough time to do that, then make sure you have a way to reach them. So, and lastly, if you're going out in the wilderness, make sure you have the capacity to get help if you are in a situation, especially if you're going alone. And lastly, before I forget, I said lastly before, if you're going to carry fuel, propane, etc., make sure you have your appropriate detectors. I'm going to give you guys an example here. This is what I have, a first alert. This is actually an explosive gas detector. So it'll detect methane, propane, diesel, etc. This was my preferred pick because I sometimes carry propane and it's always a concern for me. And whenever I run the diesel heater, I just want to make sure that the fumes are going as they're expected to and venting the proper way and not getting back into the cabin. So these are my safety tips, guys. Any of the devices I've used, for example, I will link down below. Amazon on getting some of these items. They are going to be affiliate links. They will help me at no additional cost to you guys if you decide to purchase with them. But anything that I'm going to be providing in the description down below is going to be items I have personally used and personally recommend. I'm not going to include items just because I think that they might work. I'd rather just recommend items I've already used myself without having been paid by these companies. Lastly, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this video helps someone out there. Like I said, have severe anxiety when it comes to these things, and I really try being prepared appropriately. And with the proper preparedness, it dims down my anxiety because I plan accordingly. And that is why I do shorter trips and then work up my way to longer trips, because I also want to make sure I have dealt with some of the situations I'll do on the longer trips, on the shorter trips that are a little safer of an environment to play with. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a phenomenal rest of your days and stay safe out there. Thank you.